Server-side rendering allows you to have a faster development time than just creating standard HTML files. It allows you to link between these different pages a lot easier and can improve your SEO. In this video, we're going to add server-side rendering to our productivity server using EJS. Let's get started. The code from the previous video is in the description below if you want to follow along. As a review from last video, in app.js, we set the view engine and views to the following. So we're using a engine called EJS, which is a way of creating HTML on the page, a way of doing server-side rendering. And we have all of our EJS files in the client views folder, which we're going to create right now. Let's come in here and we'll jump into views and we'll create a new file called template.ejs. This is going to be the skeleton of every single page on our website. As such, we can get all of the boilerplate HTML out of the way here. Let's exclamation mark and hit enter. I'm using a plugin. If you go to extensions and you search HTML, I'm using this plugin right here that can generate that and do what we just did. So this is going to be the layout of our entire page. Generally speaking, web pages are made up of three things. They generally have a header up at the top, and that header generally has a nav bar of some sort. Then you have the main content, which is whatever's in the middle of the page. And then at the very, very end, you have a footer of some sort, which is this thing down here at the bottom. The footer generally has copyright information. It may have terms and conditions, etc. On bigger websites, it may also have a sitemap. My website's not a bigger website, so I don't have one. But yeah, that's generally, if you look at any website, that's generally the layout that you get. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. We'll come in here and we'll create a header up at the top. Then we'll come in here, we'll do a main. So this will be the main content. And then we'll do a footer. And the footer will have the copyright information and any other kind of links that you want to put down there. Inside of the header, you could put the name of your website here, or whichever. I'm not going to. And in addition to that, some people put the nav bar after the header. I don't. I'm just going to put the nav bar right inside of the header, and we'll go from there. For each one of our web pages that we have, we'll create a link for that. So we'll come in here, we'll create a home link. I'm going to copy this and we'll do 3 more. So we'll create one for our planner that we're going to create later. We'll change this to say planner. We're going to create one for our wiki, which will be we'll say wiki there. And then also for account information, we're going to have user accounts too as well. So we'll say account, and we'll also do account. And later, we could probably put the username in here instead of just saying account, but we'll leave it for now. Perfect. So now we've got a nav bar. Let's jump into the main content. If you take a look, for example, at this web page, if you click on different pages, like if I go to articles, the header is the same on the top, and so is the footer on every single page. If I go to the about section, it's the same thing. So the header is the same at the top, the footer is generally the same. On bigger websites, sometimes the header and footer will change, but generally speaking, they kind of stay consistent. But you might have noticed every single time the content in the middle changed. Let's jump into VS Code. And this is where we can start writing our EJS. To do that, you do this little arrow and then a % like so. The minus sign says that we're going to put HTML here. We're going to call a function called include, and we're going to include whatever the content is on the page. So this is basically like a copy paste from a different file. Essentially, you could kind of think of it that way. And we're going to have other EJS files that describe all of the different other pages. Let's come in here and we'll go to footer, and I'm just going to go and do this, like maybe copyright 2024 by Alexander Farrell. I'm not saying that's what you have to do, but you could put created by whichever, or you could put the name of the website, whichever. Like maybe I'll put this in a paragraph tag, And then maybe we'll also do a productivity server. Perfect. There we go. And maybe we'll put the, you know what? Let's put the version. So we'll put 0.1 because we're currently in development. We now have the layout all good. Last thing that we're going to do, let's jump into this title here, and we'll create a title. We're going to use an equal sign because I don't want HTML to end up in there. I just want straight text. So the minus sign here does HTML, and the equal sign does text, just plain text. We're going to do a variable called title, which I'll get into in a second. You could almost think of this as filling out the blanks. So the EJS file is going to fill out the title, whatever it is here, and it's also going to fill out some content here for the page, but everything else is going to stay consistent throughout every single page. Let's jump into our views folder, and we'll create another one called index.ejs. We need another one for our planner, so we'll say planner.ejs. We'll do wiki.ejs. And last but not least, we'll do account.ejs. And now we have basically a bunch of pages for all of our different parts of our website, but they're all going to be based on this template.ejs. It actually makes it a lot easier because if I come in here to index.ejs, I can come in here and I can say, welcome to productivity server. We could probably do something like that. So what I did is I basically just did a heading, welcome to productivity server, and please click the links above to get started, or something like that to that effect. You can change it to, we're actually going to change this later. Generally, when I create a web application or a website, the last thing I do is the home page. The reason being is you kind of want to get a design and kind of know how the user uses the rest of the web page, and then you can make your home page be very, very optimized to what the user wants. So we'll leave this here for now. Let's jump into planner.ejs, and we'll say planner is coming soon, because we'll implement that in another video. Let's copy this. We'll do the same thing for the wiki. Wiki is coming soon. And then for account information, same thing. We're going to say account info coming soon. So now we have all of our pages laid out. Let's now go ahead and we'll render these. So jump into your index.ejs file. And in the last video, we just simply sent the message hello. The way that you would do this is that basically instead of doing send on this response, you would do render. But the way that we've laid it out is that we're always going to have to render this template.ejs file. Let me show you what we would have to do. We'd come in here, we do template, and then we have to pass in some data into here. So we'll use curly brackets, and then go ahead and open up those curly brackets and hit enter. We'll do content, and this is where we're going to do the file itself. So we're going to say index.ejs, and we also need to supply a title too as well. And we'll come in here and we'll say home. We could do it this way, but you would have to copy paste this for every single page. And I have a little bit of a different way that I like to do it, and I'd like to show you that now. Let's jump into our core folder, and we'll do template.js. What I like to do instead is create a function called render. It will take in the request and the response, the name of the page that you want to render, the title, which is the name of the tab. So if you're looking at this website, this is the title up here at the top, the name of the tab. In addition, any other extra data that you want to render the page with. What we can do is we can set the title to what you wrote and then production server after it, or the name of the website on every single page. Coming back to this website, the about page, there's the about, and then it has the name of the website. Or if I go to articles, it's the same thing, articles, and then the name of the website. So by doing this, you can basically render the name of the website on every single page, and you don't have to do that on every single route. You have this nice function that just does this for each one. In addition to that, we're going to make the content variable here that we have in our EJS be the name of the web page. This will be index.ejs or planner.ejs, whichever web page that you're currently rendering. And finally, because we're always rendering the template, we're going to do that, passing in the data. Perfect. Let's now go into our index.js file, and we're going to use our function instead. So up here at the top, we'll import, and we'll say render. And we're going to do it from our template. I'm going to put .js at the end of that. Let's replace this. So the code that we wrote earlier, we're now just going to call render. We're going to pass in our request, response, the name of the page, which is going to be index.ejs, the name of the title up at the top, home, and then data doesn't have to be passed. We're not going to pass any data in there. The reason why we're passing the request is because later you might want to put the username on every single page. We can simply modify this render function later as we need it. Perfect. This is also a great time for us to lay out a couple other routes for each one of the different parts of our website. Let's go into routes and let's create a new file called wiki.js. Jump into your index file and just go ahead and copy paste the following that you have up at the top. We'll jump into wiki.js and we'll paste. The reason being is the fact that this is actually going to be very similar for every single route. Instead, though, we're going to change index router right here to say wiki router instead. We'll come in here and we'll do a wiki router, and then we will do the sort of main page of the wiki. And we'll do request response, and we'll do that. We'll just call our render function again, req, res. Let's come in here and we'll do wiki.ejs, and we're going to render wiki. You can actually copy paste you can copy all of this, and let's jump into routes and we'll create another one. So we'll say planner.js. Let's come in here and paste. The only things that are going to need to change are everywhere that you're typing wiki. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to change it over here. So I'm going to say planner router. We'll come in here, we'll say planner router. We'll come in here, just make sure that you get each one of them. There's 4 of these on this page that we have to change. Perfect, we've got all that. Let's do one more router. So we'll come into our routes and we'll say account.js. Go ahead and paste, and we'll just change account everywhere. This may seem a little bit redundant, but we're kind of structuring our application. These routers will have a bunch of different routes to them in later videos. But now we have all of this set up. So we have the different parts of our website set up, like the main part, any sort of account management, our planner module our planner sort of part of our application, which we have, and then the wiki part of our application, which we have. Perfect. Let's add these routers to our page. So we'll come into server.js, go ahead and just do app.use and then /planner. So, and then we'll say planner router. In VS Code, if you see it like this, you can just hit enter and it will add it up here at the top just automatically for you. Let's come in here, we'll do the other ones. App.use, wiki, and we'll say wiki router. Okay, there we go. Last one is we're going to do the account router. So we'll say /account and we'll say account router. Perfect, and there we go. And in this, you might see that the server.js file is now, in my opinion, I think it's nice and organized. Nice and clean. You can see the different parts of your website or web application that you're building. If you find that you don't want the planner or something, you can remove it. If you want to add more different productivity, components to your application, you can absolutely come in here and do that. Let's now come in here and we will test this. Let's go ahead and we'll jump into the terminal. So I'm going to do new terminal. And then we'll come in here and we'll say npm start and hit enter. And there we go. It's now listening. Let's go ahead and we'll hold down Control and click it. If you're on a Mac, go ahead and do Command click. And there we go. We have a basic template up now. And you can actually click on these different links and they'll take you to different parts of the website. There's obviously no CSS to this, and the bright white background is an eyesore. So let's come in here and let's fix that. Let's come in here and we'll jump into public and we'll create a new file called style.css. Inside of here, let's just do some very basic styling. Let's do background color and we'll do maybe blue. I like to type a color and then I like to hover over it and get a little bit closer there. I'm going to do, on our page, I'll do maybe like a bit of a kind of dull blue maybe. And we'll go a little bit more like that. Yeah, that's probably good. And then color, and we'll do white for the text color. Next, let's go into our template.ejs file. And we're going to come in here and we're going to type link. And then we'll do /css/style.css. And there we go. We actually only have to change one file and it will apply to all of our website. That's the amazing thing about using server-side rendering. Client-side rendering has the same benefit in this too as well. This is not exclusive to server-side rendering, but this is a benefit that you get as opposed to just using straight HTML. Let's come in here and we will refresh our page. And there we go. The links are not showing up. So let's put this on one side of the screen. I'm going to bring up style.css. I'm going to hide this. And let's get to work. We're going to style our header. So we'll come in here and we'll say header. I'm going to take the same background color. I'm going to use a slightly lighter background color. And there we go. By default, browsers add margin to the page. Let's take that off. Let's come in here. We'll say margin 0. And there we go. The other thing too is the footer is not at the bottom of the page. A trick that I like to do, let's say min height 100 VH, and also display grid and grid template rows auto 1FR auto. What this will do is this will basically shove the footer down to the bottom because it's here. This is the main content, which stretches, right? 1FR means flex units. So they'll stretch to the page. And then we have an auto up here for the header. Let's come in here and let's style these nav buttons. So we'll say nav, and then any link inside of it, any A tag. Let's come in here and let's change the color of them. So we'll say color white, and we'll do that. You might have been asking, well, why didn't this change that? Well, A tags are a little interesting. You do have to explicitly set the color of them in order to get them to work like that. Let's come in here and I want to get rid of this underline. So we'll say text decoration 0. Perfect. And then we'll come in and we'll do that. Let's make these nav buttons a little bit bigger. So we'll say padding 10 pixels. That's great. It's not doing the padding up and down because we need to do display block. And there we go. This is perfect. Now let's make it so that these go left and right instead. So we'll say nav, and we're going to do display flex. And this will, instead of going up and down, it will go left and right. Perfect. These are kind of looking like buttons, but buttons generally change when you hover over them. So we'll say nav a colon hover. So a style that's going to be applied when you hover over it. Let's come in here and we'll do background color. I'm going to choose white, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover my mouse over this. I'm going to use this slider right here. And I'm just going to go really transparent. I'm going to go like 0.1 somewhere in there. I'm going to refresh the page, and there we go. If you hover over it, it will actually highlight those. Next, I want it to be a little bit smooth when it highlights, so go into the nav A, not the hover one. And we'll come in here and we'll say transition and 0.2s. There we go. And we can hover over that. 0.2s is kind of slow. 0.1s, anywhere between 0.1 seconds and 0.2 seconds is generally what you've got for most animations. I like to do 0.2. Anything longer than that really drags on. Okay, I currently have this zoomed in as I was talking about earlier just because I want to see it, but let's see the true, yeah, so that is relatively, that might be okay, but let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's jump into the body and we'll say font size. 20 pixels is generally, yeah, that's probably good. Perfect. Now, one other thing too is if you see this, it's shoving all of the content over to the left. And this is one of the downsides of having a widescreen screen. You know, we've had them for about, what, 25 years. They've been, you know, vogue. But this is one of the disadvantages, is that it becomes harder to read content. And when you create a web page, it just, you know, shoves everything to the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to put everything in the center instead. Let's come over here. We want this to apply to the header, the main, and the footer. So we're going to come in here and say header, main, footer. What I want is I want to do some margin, 0 up and down, and auto left and right. Then what we'll do is we'll do width 100%. So it's going to try to stretch. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to say max width, and we'll say 700 pixels. Cool. Now, one thing though is that the header, I actually don't want the header to do that. I want the nav to do that. So right where it says header, we're going to change this to nav. And there we go. The header I do want to stretch across the page, but all the other ones I don't want to. Let's come in here and let's make the footer center. So we'll say footer, and we'll do text align center. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add a gap between the home page, and I want to put these buttons over to the right. So let's jump back into our template.ejs. And I want a space in between that. I want a non-breaking space. Let's come in here right. So I'm right at the home button right here. Let's come over here and we're going to do a div, an and sign NBSP. And we'll go from there. You'll notice if you did it correctly, it should change colors. This is a non-breaking space. So I'll zoom in a little bit on it so you can kind of see that. So a non-breaking space, do the and symbol, which is above the 7 key on your keyboard, and then a semicolon, not a colon, not the 2 dots, the one with the comma. Perfect. And then what we're going to do is we'll jump into our CSS. Let's come over here and we're going to create a class. We're going to say stretch. And then we'll come in here, we'll do flex of 1. This will make it stretch. Let's come back to that template.ejs file. And now right before the V here, so I'll move that here, right before the V here, inside of the arrow, we'll say class of stretch. Perfect. If I refresh the page, it'll now throw everything over to the right, so we've got the home button over here to the left, and then we have our different modules, and then the account is on the right. And if we stretch this out, it'll look like the following. Perfect. This actually is, I think, a good skeleton for our productivity server for now. We're going to probably make changes to it later as we go. But thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that this gets you started with rendering your website with EJS. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.